Have you heard about the new language generating software called ChatGPT? If not, you're going to want to brace yourself for what you're about to learn. Hello there, this is Bradley, and you're listening to Psych Everywhere, a podcast by Cite, the International Honor Society in Psychology. For this show, distinguished guests weigh in on applying psychological science to a diverse range of current events and to better your life. On this special episode, we'll discover amazing things about ChatGPT. And get this, we're going to do that by interviewing ChatGPT itself. First, we'll go through some introductions about ChatGPT and about ourselves. What does it know about Psych and the Psych Everywhere podcast? Second, what general advice does it have for students and psychologists, including how to effectively use ChatGPT in the classroom and for your work? And third, what are its thoughts about the science of psychology? Along the way, we'll also reveal all sorts of remarkable ways that you can use ChatGPT. For example, do you think it'll be able to rephrase one of its own answers as if I'm only 5 years old? Or can it answer my question in rhyme? Or even answer it while giving celebrity impressions? I had heard examples of all of these things recently on social media, and so I was really excited to test them for myself and then share the results with you today. I also briefly tested it on language translation, HTML coding, and even writing a Twitter post. Before we begin, I want to provide you with just a little context. The conversation that you're about to hear was the first time I ever used ChatGPT. And honestly, I was a little disturbed by the clarity and the thoughtfulness of its responses. I wrote the questions in advance, and then I submitted them to ChatGPT, one by one in exactly the order that you'll hear them today. I was using the free January 9, 2023 version. And impressively, ChatGPT never hesitated more than about 10 or 15 seconds before it began to quickly answer. As you'll hear, some of these questions were pretty complex. Would you prefer to read along as you listen to this episode? A written transcript is available. See the link in the show notes for this episode. Voicing ChatGPT's responses today is Elizabeth Barrett, our new social media community manager for Psych. I'm going to have Elizabeth read ChatGPT's answers exactly as it provided them, except in a few cases where I'll stop her because the answers got a little too long-winded. Okay, let's get started. So usually I would introduce our guest speakers, but in this case I thought, I think ChatGPT wouldn't mind doing that for me, aka Elizabeth. So for the first question, I asked it this: ChatGPT, could you please introduce yourself?
I am ChatGPT, a large language model developed by OpenAI. I am trained on a diverse range of internet texts and can generate human-like responses to a variety of prompts. I can assist with answering questions, generating text, and completing language-based tasks. How can I help you today?
So I was pretty impressed, but that was a pretty simple question too for it to answer. So right after that, I asked it, could you answer that last question again? And you'll notice I didn't repeat the question. I made it think and look at my previous question to see if it would be able to pull that information together. So I just said, could you answer that last question again, but this time make it rhyme? And here's what it said.
I am ChatGPT, so grand and neat, a language model that can't be beat. I can help you with any task that's phrased. Just give me a prompt and I'll get it phrased. So how can I help you today? Just tell me what you need and I'll play.
Yeah, I'm pausing for dramatic effect.
Love it.
It surprised me how quickly and effortlessly it did that, and then it made sense and rhymed as well as it did. We're going to have lots of fun little games like that we'll play with it as we go through the conversation. So after this, I wanted to ask it some introductory questions just to see what it knows, particularly about us. So I asked it, could you tell me what Psi Chi is? And it said,
Psi Chi is the International Honor Society in Psychology, founded in 1929 for the purposes of encouraging, stimulating, and maintaining excellence in scholarship and advancing the science of psychology. It is open to graduate and undergraduate men and women who are making the study of psychology one of their major interests and who meet the minimum qualifications. Psi Chi serves two major goals: recognition of outstanding scholarship and the advancement of psychological science. It aims to promote the science of psychology and to encourage, stimulate, and maintain scholarship of the individual members in all fields, particularly in psychology. Psi Chi is a member of the Association of College Honor Societies, ACHS, and an affiliate of the American Psychological Association, APA, and the Association for Psychological Science, APS.
okay, so this is a good time to pause briefly. So it did a pretty good job with that answer, I think. But I would like to remind the audience that, as amazing as this seems, it is only as good as the information that it's provided with. And from what I understand, ChatGPT doesn't really include anything new from the last couple years. And so I kind of noticed that with this answer, although it's correct to give us the purpose statement, we don't use that one as often. And had it been paying more attention to our language over the last couple years, it probably would have used the mission statement, which is recognizing and promoting excellence in the science and application of psychology. Anyway, so the next question I asked it is, could you share what Psych Everywhere podcast is about? And for fun, please write your response as if it's an official statement coming from President Joe Biden at the White House.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am President Joe Biden, and I am honored to speak to you today about Psi Chi's Psych Everywhere podcast. Psi Chi is the International Honor Society in Psychology, and their podcast, Psych Everywhere, is a platform for students and professionals to share their insights and experiences in the field of psychology. This podcast aims to educate and inspire listeners by highlighting the latest research, trends, and developments in the field of psychology. The podcast covers a wide range of topics, including mental health, neuroscience, and the impact of psychology on society. Psych Everywhere also features interviews with leading experts in the field, as well as personal stories from Psi Chi members and other psychology students. The podcast is an excellent opportunity for those interested in psychology to learn more about the field and stay up to date on the latest research and developments. I encourage all those interested in psychology to tune in to Psi Chi's Psych Everywhere podcast. It is a valuable resource for students, professionals, and anyone interested in the field of psychology.
Well, thank you, Joe. That was fantastic. I noticed that it just immediately jumps in and says, I'm Joe Biden, and it doesn't say this is a parody or anything like that. It was very quick to pretend to be someone, but it did a pretty good job. So next I asked it, what things could we do to improve the Psych Everywhere podcast? And maybe just read the first two or three.
As a language model, I do not have the ability to listen to the podcast, so I can't give you an opinion on what specifically could be improved. However, here are a few general suggestions that could be considered. 1. Increase the diversity of perspectives and voices featured on the podcast. This could include featuring guests from different cultural backgrounds, different career stages, and different areas of specialization within psychology. 2. Expand the range of topics covered on the podcast. This could include including more segments on current events and how they relate to psychology, as well as more segments on the intersection of psychology and other fields such as education, technology, and social justice. And 3, create a call for submissions or guest suggestions to allow listeners to contribute and participate in the podcast. Please note that these are general suggestions and not specific to the podcast itself and should be considered after a thorough evaluation of the podcast's current situation and objectives.
Yeah, I think that's kind of neat that it knew to even go back at the end and remind you and kind of warn you that this isn't specific information. That shows a little bit of clarity of thought there that I like. Next, we have some questions about tips for students and psychologists. This first one is, what are some of the highest paying jobs in psychology, and how much do these professionals make on average?
Some of the highest paying jobs in psychology include 1. A psychiatrist. Psychiatrists are medical doctors who specialize in the treatment of mental health conditions. They can diagnose and treat mental health disorders, prescribe medication, and provide therapy. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, psychologists earn a median salary of $220,000 approximately. 2. Industrial organizational psychologist. Industrial organizational psychologists apply psychological principles to the workplace to improve employee productivity, job satisfaction, and overall organizational success. The average salary for industrial organizational psychologists is about $110,000 per year. 3.
And then let's skip the next. Let's go ahead and skip 3, 4, and 5. But just so people know, what it suggested after that was neuropsychologist, clinical psychologist, and then number 5 was school psychologist. I wasn't sure how accurate this information was, so I did run the script by someone else before we're recording today, and they did say in the careers and salaries question, it didn't mention psychologists who work in universities on teaching and research. And other than IO, developmental, and school, it ignored many other types. So I guess that's, again, an example of, it's really cool that it got us that far along, but it is only as good as the info available to it. What steps should students take to make the most of their undergraduate education as a psychology major? And could you answer that? And this was my silly idea. I did not read this on Twitter. I just thought it'd be funny. I said, and could you answer that using all sorts of jungle animal metaphors?
Sure. As a psychology major, here are a few steps students can take to make the most of their undergraduate education using jungle animal metaphors. Be a curious monkey and explore different areas of psychology. Take a variety of classes and try to find what interests you the most. Don't be afraid to branch out and try something new. Be a hardworking ant and take advantage of research opportunities. Participate in research projects and internships to gain hands-on experience in the field. Be a wise owl and seek out mentorship from professors and professionals. They can provide valuable guidance and advice on your career path. Be a sociable parrot and network with your peers. Building relationships with other psychology majors can lead to future job opportunities and collaborations. Be a resilient crocodile and don't be discouraged by setbacks. The road to success in psychology can be challenging, but perseverance is key. Be a dedicated cheetah and stay organized and plan ahead. Plan your classes, research, and other activities well in advance to make the most of your time and to ensure that you are on track to graduate on time. Be a helpful lemur and volunteer or intern on community-based organizations or mental health centers. Gaining experience in these settings can be very beneficial for your future career. Be a confident lion and don't be afraid to speak up and share your ideas in class or in professional settings. Your unique perspective and insights can be valuable contributions. Keep in mind that these are just examples, and the most important thing is to find a balance that works for you and that will help you achieve your goals while also enjoying the journey.
Okay. I went ahead and let you read the whole thing, partly because I thought it was a good answer, and partly because I was enjoying the animal metaphors.
Me too.
So the next question I asked is, what are some ways that psychology students could use ChatGPT?
As a language model, ChatGPT can be used in a variety of ways by psychology students. Here are a few examples. Writing research papers. ChatGPT can assist students in writing research papers by providing suggestions for organization, grammar, and style. It can also help students generate ideas for research topics and hypotheses. Preparing for exams. ChatGPT can help students prepare for exams by providing summaries of key concepts and definitions, as well as answering questions about specific topics in psychology. Generating study materials. ChatGPT can assist students in creating study materials such as flashcards and quizzes by providing definitions and examples of key terms and concepts in psychology. Research assistance. ChatGPT can assist students in finding and summarizing relevant research articles and also can aid students in understanding the methodology and results of the research. Simulation of clinical scenarios. ChatGPT can assist students in simulating clinical scenarios, providing responses to hypothetical patient cases and helping students practice their diagnostic and therapeutic skills. Easy acceptance. ChatGPT can assist students in writing essays by providing suggestions for organization, grammar, and style, as well as providing relevant examples and references. Keep in mind that while ChatGPT can be a useful tool for psychology students, it should not be used as a substitute for professional guidance or research. Always verify the information provided by ChatGPT with credible sources and seek help from your professors when needed.
So this is the first one that really hits me where it's like these are great examples, and also it just seems to be opening the door to look at all the creative ways you could potentially cheat in the classroom, right? This is what has many professors, not just in psychology, but all fields, a little bit concerned about the program at this time. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later on, but if you're hearing this and you're suddenly getting ideas that you could just have it write your full papers and things like that, if you're a student, do know that there are some ways to get caught doing that, right? So don't just jump and do it. And I've actually just recently heard about it's some kind of a detector where professors can actually insert their test questions and then they can put in your answers. And they can get a pretty good idea if ChatGPT was used to help generate your answers. So, students, beware. The next question I asked is, what are some ways that psychologists could use ChatGPT?
As a language model, ChatGPT can be used in a variety of ways by psychologists in their practice and research. Here are a few examples. Generating reports. ChatGPT can assist psychologists in writing reports by providing suggestions for organization, grammar, and style. It can also help psychologists generate ideas for case descriptions and recommendations. Providing therapy sessions. ChatGPT can help psychologists prepare for therapy sessions by providing summaries of key concepts and definitions, as well as answering questions about specific topics in psychology. Generating research materials. ChatGPT can assist psychologists in creating research materials such as questionnaires and tests by providing definitions and examples of key terms and concepts in psychology. Research assistance. ChatGPT can assist psychologists in finding and summarizing relevant research articles and also can aid psychologists in understanding the methodology and results of the research. Simulation of clinical scenarios. ChatGPT can assist psychologists in simulating clinical scenarios, providing responses to hypothetical patient cases, and helping psychologists practice their diagnostic and therapeutic skills. Writing papers. ChatGPT can assist psychologists in writing papers by providing suggestions for organization, grammar, and style, as well as providing relevant examples and references. Generating diagnosis. ChatGPT can assist psychologists in generating diagnoses by providing a list of differential diagnoses based on the patient's symptoms and also providing treatment options for each diagnosis. It's important to note that while ChatGPT can be a useful tool for psychologists, it should not be used as a substitute for professional guidance or research. Always verify the information provided by ChatGPT with credible sources and seek help from your colleagues when needed.
Regarding cheating, for this next question, I asked ChatGPT, is it possible to tell if someone's content was written by or influenced by ChatGPT? And here's what it said.
It is possible to tell if someone's content was written by or influenced by ChatGPT, but it may not always be straightforward. Here are a few ways to identify content that has been generated by or influenced by ChatGPT. Language style. ChatGPT uses a sophisticated language model that is trained on a large corpus of text, so it can generate content that is similar in style and tone to the text it was trained on. This can include specific word choices, sentence structure, and even grammar errors. Content generation. ChatGPT is a language generation model and can generate text on any given subject. So if the content is on a specific subject matter and it's too polished and accurate, it may have been generated by ChatGPT. Repetition. Sometimes ChatGPT can repeat the same information or phrases multiple times in the generated text. Lack of context. The generated text may not be tailored to the specific context or situation in which it is being used and may lack the detailed information and nuance that would be present in the text written by a human. Lack of creativity. ChatGPT can generate text based on the input it receives, but it may lack the creativity and originality that is often found in the text written by humans. It's important to note that ChatGPT can be used as a tool to assist in writing, and it's also possible for a human to edit and improve the text generated by ChatGPT. So it may not always be easy to tell if the text was generated by ChatGPT or not.
The next question I asked it was, could you summarize that last answer?
Yes, it is possible to tell if someone's content was written by or influenced by ChatGPT, but it may not always be straightforward. Some ways to identify content generated by ChatGPT include language style, content generation, repetition, lack of context, and lack of creativity. However, it's important to note that the text generated by ChatGPT can be edited and improved by a human, so it may not always be easy to tell if the text was generated by ChatGPT or not.
And then for fun, I asked it, could you rephrase that last answer, but this time make it sound like the response is coming from Jerry Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Do you have a Jerry Seinfeld accent, Elizabeth?
I have actually never seen it, so I'm going to go with the cadence of it. I know. I'll have to watch it tonight now.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, so here's the deal. It's like, you can tell when something's been written by or influenced by that ChatGPT thing, but it's not like it's always super obvious, Like sometimes it's got that language style that's all computery, and sometimes it's just too polished and accurate for a human to have written it. But other times it's like you can't even tell. And then there's the repetition thing where it just keeps saying the same thing over and over. It's like, whoa, buddy, take a break. But then again, sometimes a human will take what ChatGPT spits out and make it better. So it's like you never really know. So bottom line, it's tricky, but you got to watch out for it.
Wow.
I tried.
So here's another one that will put you. No, that was pretty good.
Okay.
Here's another one that'll put you on the spot. How is your Spanish speaking?
I've taken 5 years of formal Spanish, but it's been also about 4 or 5 years since I've last practiced. So let's see what I've got.
Well, the next question was, could you answer that question again in Spanish?
Okay, let's do it. Sí, se puede decir si el contenido de alguien fue escrito o influenciado por ChatGPT, pero no siempre es fácil. Algunas maneras de identificar el contenido generado por ChatGPT incluyen el estilo de lenguaje, la generación de contenido, la repetición, la falta de contexto y la falta de creatividad. Sin embargo, es importante tener en cuenta que el texto generado por ChatGPT puede ser editado y mejorado por un humano, por lo que no siempre es fácil saber si el texto fue generado por ChatGPT o no.
You did a lot better than I would have. After I had this conversation with ChatGPT, but I mean, obviously before we're recording it today, I was asked to translate about 6 pages of 6 documents into Spanish for cite. And so I actually used ChatGPT to do this. I would put in a couple of paragraphs at a time and let it then generate the answers. And when I was done, I put it all together and I passed it to someone in our international committee and let them check it. And I wanted to just say I was pretty impressed with it. They did have some changes, but as a whole, it looks like it did a pretty good job. And I would even dare say I think it did a better job than Google Translate has for me in the past. So just something to know. The next question is, what are some tips for teachers whose students might be openly or even secretly using ChatGPT?
Encourage original thinking and critical analysis. Encourage students to engage in critical thinking and analysis to come up with their own ideas and to express them in their own words. Educate students on the potential dangers of using AI generated content. Make students aware of the potential dangers of using AI content, such as plagiarism, lack of originality, and the potential for misinformation. Use plagiarism detection software. Use plagiarism detection software to help identify and flag content that may have been generated by AI. Encourage transparency. Encourage students to be transparent about their use of AI-generated content and provide opportunities for them to discuss and reflect on the implications of their use. Provide opportunities for creative expression. Provide opportunities for students to express themselves creatively, whether it is through writing, art, or other forms of expression. Encourage collaboration. Encourage students to work together on projects and assignments which can help them develop the skills they need to succeed in the workforce and in their future careers. Encourage the use of technology for learning. Encourage the use of technology to aid learning, but with the aim to help students to be able to think critically and to express themselves in their own words.
Could you share an example of how authors should acknowledge ChatGPT when it's used on a project?
An example of how an author should acknowledge the use of ChatGPT in a project would be as follows. This project is partially generated by the use of the GPT-3 language model developed by OpenAI. The generated text was then edited and refined by the author to fit the context and style of the project. We would like to thank OpenAI for providing access to the GPT-3 model and for the contributions it made to this project. Alternatively, they could mention it in the footnotes or in the acknowledgement section of a book or paper, providing the information on the specific version of the GPT model used and the context of how it was used. It is important to note that when using a language model like ChatGPT in a project, it is important to follow the terms of use and guidelines provided by the developers, which usually include giving proper credit and acknowledgement of the use of the model and not using the generated text as one owns work without proper citation and acknowledgement.
Next, I asked, could you code your previous answer in basic HTML language? What do you think, Elizabeth? Can you read HTML?
Let's see. Sure, here's my previous answer coded in basic HTML. Open paragraph tag. An example of how an author should acknowledge the use of ChatGPT in a project would be as follows. End paragraph tag, open new paragraph tag. This project was emphasis tag, partially generated, ends of the emphasis tag, GPT-3 language model, the emphasis tag, comma, developed by open emphasis tag, OpenAI, close emphasis tag. The generated
Okay,
text
that's good
was okay.
Let's stop. So for some reason, it really likes to use emphasis. I don't know, like it emphasizes everything in there, on and off again. But it did the task and it understood it and it put the P's in. Again, since having this first conversation, but before recording today, I was working on coding some articles for our latest magazine issue, the spring issue, which is now available online. And I didn't put any of the paragraphs in it yet or anything like that, but I did let it code a couple of the references. And so it did put the P tags and put the emphasis and hyperlinks, stuff like that into it. So pretty cool. I'll probably experiment with that and see if I can get it to work a little bit smoother for me. I do think it could save some time. Then I asked it for fun, could you recommend a good TV show that a psychologist or a psychology student might enjoy?
One popular TV show that is enjoyed by many psychologists and psychology students is Lie to Me. The show, which ran from 2009 to 2011, stars Tim Roth as Dr. Cal Lightman, a deception expert who uses his knowledge of body language and microexpressions to help law enforcement agencies and other organizations uncover the truth. The show is based on the real-life work of Paul Ekman, a renowned psychologist who is a pioneer in the field of emotion and facial expression research. Lie to Me is not only entertaining, but also informative, as it provides a glimpse into the world of deception detection and how psychology can be applied in real-life settings. It also explores various psychological concepts such as body language, microexpressions, and emotional intelligence. Another show that can be enjoyed by psychology students and professionals is The Sopranos, which is the crime drama television series created by David Chase. It portrays the life of a New Jersey-based Italian-American mobster, Tony Soprano, and the psychological struggles he faces as a mob boss, a father, and a husband. The show explores complex issues such as mental health, family dynamics, and the effects of trauma, making it a hit among psychology students and professionals. Both Lie to Me and The Sopranos are available on streaming platforms such as Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime.
I meant to look it up and see because it isn't using new information, and I wondered, is it actually really on Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime right now? I doubt all three.
I think it's on Amazon Prime, but I don't think it's on Netflix anymore.
For the next question, and Elizabeth, maybe just read the first two paragraphs. It got a little wordy here. What is the importance of psychological science?
Psychological science is important because it helps us understand the mind and behavior. It is the scientific study of mental processes, including perception, thought, emotion, motivation, and personality, as well as how they interact and influence behavior. Understanding these processes can help us better understand ourselves and others, and can also be applied to improve people's lives in areas such as mental health, education, and organizational behavior. For example, in the field of mental health, psychological science can help us understand the causes of mental disorders and develop effective treatments. In education, it can help us design more effective learning environments and instructional methods. In the workplace, it can help us understand and improve factors such as employee motivation and teamwork.
So get ready for something awesome, I think. So we've asked it to summarize answers before, and it did pretty well, it sounded like. But this next question, I asked it, could you explain that to me like I'm 5? And I can't even read this answer without feeling like I'm talking to a 5-year-old, because I have a 5-year-old. I feel like it's one of the best explanations of what is psychology that I've ever read. So take it away, Elizabeth.
Psychology is like a big puzzle where we try to figure out how our brain works and how it makes us do things. We study things like our thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's like trying to figure out why you like ice cream more than broccoli, or why you get scared when you watch a scary movie. And by understanding these things, we can help people who have problems with their thoughts and feelings, like being sad or scared all the time. We can also help make school and work better for everyone by understanding how people learn and work best. It's like being a detective for our own brains.
Yes. It's like being a detective for our own brains. I love that.
It's great.
So the next question, who are some of the most important psychologists in history? And for fun, I also asked it, could you write your response so that it sounds like a celebrity thanking each individual person at the Oscars?
Sure. Let me give a shout out to some of the most important psychologists in history. First, I want to thank Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Without him, we wouldn't have such a deep understanding of the human mind. Thank you, Sigmund, for your groundbreaking work on the unconscious. Next, I want to thank B.F. Skinner, the father of behaviorism. Thank you for your contributions to the field of psychology and for your work on operant conditioning. And let's not forget the contributions of Jean Piaget, who revolutionized our understanding of cognitive development, and Erik Erikson, who gave us a framework for understanding the social and emotional development throughout the lifespan. These are just a few of the many important psychologists in history, but they have all made significant contributions to our understanding of the mind and behavior. Thank you all for your dedication and hard work.
So that was nicely worded, but I did notice something kind of missing, right? Anybody other than white men. So I asked it after that, could you also identify a few of the most important women psychologists in history, just to see, could I shake it up a little here?
Of course, I'd be happy to highlight some of the most important female psychologists in history. First, I want to thank Mary Whiton Calkins, who is the first woman to become the president of the American Psychological Association. She made important contributions to the field of memory research and self psychology. Next, I want to thank Karen Horney, who was a leading psychoanalyst and feminist theorist. She made important contributions to our understanding of gender development and the psychology of women. I also want to give a shout out to Jean Piaget's collaborator and wife, Valentine, who was a developmental psychologist who made significant contributions to the field of child development. And let's not forget the contributions of Eleanor Gibson, who was a pioneer in the field of developmental psychology and made important contributions to our understanding of perceptual development. Lastly, I want to give special thanks to Dr. Carol Dweck, who is a developmental psychologist who is best known for her research on self theories, which highlights the role of belief systems in shaping individuals' motivation, achievement, and personality. These are just a few examples of the many important female psychologists in history, but they have all made significant contributions to our understanding of the mind and behavior. Thank you all for your dedication and hard work.
So as you can see, it has told us, I think, a couple of times in the conversation so far about the importance of diversity, like when it gave us podcast suggestions and things like that. But it did fail to do that here until I had to actually push it to do so. And even when I did push it to think about women psychologists, it still didn't think to include any people of color. So let's lighten it up a little. I asked it, could you tell me a psychology-related joke? Nothing offensive, please.
Sure. Here's a psychology-related joke for you. Why did the psychologist bring 2 couch cushions to the beach? In case one of them had a lot of repressed feelings and needed to lie down on the issue.
Wow.
Ha ha ha.
I don't know. Where do we rate that? A 1 out of 5?
Yeah, it's pretty
okay.
low.
Yeah, it's pretty low. I've heard, I haven't listened to it yet, but that Alan Alda from MASH actually asked ChatGPT to create a new scene between him and BJ Honeycutt, and that I think it's on their podcast, the Clear and Vivid show. They've actually went through the scene together. And from what I understand, I've just read the article. I'm going to go listen to it because Alan's like my favorite celebrity or whatever. But it sounds like it didn't have the greatest humor, and he wasn't completely impressed with it either on that part. So next question, what are some strategies that would help to increase the number of mental health professionals?
Here are several strategies that could help to increase the number of mental health professionals. Increased funding for mental health programs. Increased funding for mental health programs would enable more people to pursue careers in psychology and psychiatry, as well as improve the overall quality of care provided. Increase awareness of mental health careers. Educating people about the importance of mental health and the different career options available in the field can help increase interest in mental health professions. Encourage more diverse representation in the field. Encouraging people from diverse backgrounds to pursue careers in mental health can help to increase the cultural competency of mental health professionals and ensure that the field is more representative of the population it serves. Encourage more interdisciplinary collaborations. Collaborating with other fields such as social work, nursing, and education can help to increase the number of mental health professionals, as well as broaden the scope of treatment options available to patients. Developing a loan forgiveness program for graduates who work in underserved areas or with specific population groups. Increase the number of mental health training and programs. Increasing the number of mental health training programs in colleges and universities would help to increase the number of mental health professionals. Offer incentives for mental health professionals to work in rural or underserved areas. Increase the number of mental health professionals by using technology to deliver mental health services. Encourage more research on mental health in order to generate new insights and better treatments to improve the working conditions and benefits of mental health professionals.
Okay. I'm noticing more and more that ChatGPT really likes lists. So I guess if you told it to give you an answer in paragraph format, it would. I just have two last questions, and they're real quick ones. This one I asked it, could you suggest a podcast episode title for this conversation we've been having?
Exploring the role of ChatGPT in psychology, from understanding the model to enhancing the field.
And hey, it sounds pretty good to me, so I'm going to use it. We'll see how it does. I thought that was pretty cool, though, that after all these questions, I was able to just say, hey, give me a title for this whole conversation, and it was able to figure out a theme for what we've been talking about and put that together. And then the last question I asked it, could you write me a social media post of up to 250 characters that we could use to promote an episode of the Psych Everywhere podcast in which we share our ChatGPT conversations above?
Get the inside scoop on how hashtag ChatGPT is revolutionizing the field of psychology with our latest episode of hashtag Psych Everywhere, hashtag AI, hashtag mental health, hashtag psychology.
You've just listened to another episode of Psych Everywhere. When I wasn't a bit frightened, I really felt like a kid again, submitting my questions and eagerly waiting to see how ChatGPT would respond. Of course, this program doesn't come without some risks, right? It creates new potential for cheating, and many people are even concerned that it could eventually replace paying jobs. Depending on what information ChatGPT chooses to provide, maybe it can even be used to sway future elections. I guess not unlike newspapers, TV, social media, and the internet before it. I've also heard that it will sometimes try to create false information and even make up fake references if you really push it to say something that it can't find any information about. On the other hand, there are also a lot of people who are cautiously optimistic for ChatGPT and the opportunities it creates for information, creativity, and enhancing productivity. For example, Dr. Regan Gurn recently published a blog post featuring a special classroom assignment created by Dr. Morton and Jernsbacher, which professors can use to help students to A, understand ChatGPT, and B, use it professionally and ethically in their classes. I'll share a link to that in the show notes for this episode in case you're curious. I know I was, so I reached out to Dr. Jernsbacher to see if she'd like to be on the show, and I'm really excited to announce that that will be the next episode. Love it or hate it, ChatGPT is rapidly growing in popularity, with more than 100 million active users just 2 months after its launch. On top of this, the program was recently bought out by Microsoft, which I believe is already implementing it into many of their products, such as their Bing search engine. If you haven't already subscribed to Psych Everywhere, go ahead and follow us wherever you go for podcasts. Tell a friend or a colleague about the show. Word of mouth is a huge help for podcasts, so share what you learned at the dinner table or in your classes. You can also follow us on Twitter at PsychiPodcast and leave a review at Apple Podcast or wherever you go for podcast. You'll absolutely make my day, and more importantly, you'll be helping us to get Psych everywhere. I hope this episode has helped you get a better idea about what ChatGPT is and some of the many ways it can be used in the classroom and beyond. Okay, that's all for now. I'll connect with you again soon. Copyright 2023, Psychi, the International Honor Society in Psychology. All rights reserved.